Hi, I'm Josh and welcome to day 7 of 12 days of Vlogmas. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 21 books that I plan on reading in 2021. So the title of this video is a little misleading because 21 books isn't quite right. I am going to be showing you 21 books, but each of these books, a lot of these books might represent a range of books by a certain author. So meaning these are authors I want to read more of, or they're going to be representing a series that I want to read more of. So let's just get into it. Where to start? This here is one of the oldest books I have on my TBR. This is a collection of Charles Dickens books that I got from Barnes & Noble years ago, and I need to read Charles Dickens. I've only read A Christmas Carol, and I've heard that Donna Tartt is very Dickinson in her writing, and I really liked her writing, so I think I might like this. I might like him. And so I fully intend to hopefully read multiple books by him next year, but at least one. And I need to be able to say I've read at least 2 books in here before I move it to my shelf. And next is a fairly new book that I get for my birthday as a gift. And this is Jane Austen, a collection of novels. I have never read Jane Austen. I did try once, not very long before I gave up. That was like 10 years ago. I think I'm at a point where I can really appreciate her writing. And even if I don't, honestly, it's just because it's a classic, I want to really get to them. So because this is a gift, I have to at least start it next year. I'll probably start with Pride and Prejudice because, you know, it is the quintessential Jane Austen novel. Continuing on to sort of classics, literary fiction, Toni Morrison is someone that I can fully intend to continue reading. I want to reread Beloved, which I read this year, but I'll probably end up reading all of her books twice just because they're so dense that I want to make sure I'm getting as much as possible out of it. So while I'm holding this one, this is the next one I want to read after Beloved. This is God Help the Child, and I considered how to approach these books because obviously this is one of her later books, but I chose this one because I bought this at Barnes & Noble like right after it came out, and I started it, never finished it. Wait, did I really get this far? There's a piece of paper in here. That's farther than I thought I did. But in any case, I'm going to read this one next because it's the oldest on my TBR. And next, I've been reading Maya Angelou's series of autobiographies, and I'm now on to book 5, which is All of God's Children Need Traveling Shoes. And honestly, I'm hoping to read at least 2 by her next year. Hopefully, and maybe all of them. We'll see. But definitely, absolutely for sure, this one. Next is not really an author and more of just one book. It's one of those rare cases where it's only just a book. And that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is sort of a gothic romance story that I wanted to read in October. It is, I think, the only book that I had listed on my mid-year freakout tag last year, or this year rather, as wanting to read before the year's out. And I did not get to it. It was on my TBR for sure. I just did not get to it. So I promise you I will get to this next year. Next is going to be Galileo's Daughter, or Davis Sobel. Davis Sobel is a science writer, a journalist, but she's known for writing a range of different science books, and honestly all about astronomy and planets, shit I study. So I want to get to them. This is one of the oldest ones on my TBR, hence me mentioning it. I would like to get to multiple books. This year, I think I only read 1 by her, and I'm disappointed in myself because I really wanted to get to this one this year. Hopefully next year I can get through at least 2 of her books. I think she has like 5 or 6, so there's plenty to last me, but I want to try and get to them. Oh, what's this? Continuing on in collections, we have James Baldwin's early novel and stories, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Giovanni's Room, Another Country, and Going to Meet the Man. And I'd like to begin this and hopefully get through several, or at least 2 next year, for certain 1. And this is, I want to say, the first of either 2 or 3 collections of James Baldwin. I will be reading these before I read the next ones, but this is the Library of America edition. I've been buying a lot of Library of America editions, honestly, and I would like to read all of his books, hence me buying the first of the Library of America collection. But I am excited to get to these, particularly because they're his early novels. I've heard a lot of great things about him, about his writing, and about Giovanni's Room, Go Tell It on the Mountain. The other 2, Another Country, and Going to Meet the Man. It is something I'm familiar with, but this will be great for helping me address both people of color and also queer authors, and also it's a classic. So many things that I'm striving to improve my stats on. Also, I think it'll just be amazing books. Continuing on with Library of America, that I do not have to show you. Shirley Jackson, I want to read more of. I do not have them here, but I have bought all of her books now. Like, I think there were 2 different Library of America collections that had all of her works in those, and I've bought those, and they're at my sister's house. But I intend to continue reading Shirley Jackson. I would like to try and get through a lot of her works next year. I've read 4 of her books, which 2 of which were her memoirs. But this is A Honey Hill House, which I've already read. I want to read her other ones, The Sundial and We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I think signature among those. She's an author I fully intend to dive into headfirst. Similarly speaking, I plan to read more John Steinbeck. I read East of Eden this month, and dear God, I loved it. Spoilers for my wrap-up. It might be a new favorite. Like, I can't believe I waited so long to read John Steinbeck. His writing is phenomenal. His characters are amazing. I loved it so much. They were so evil. Even the good ones were like so self-righteous and to a fault. And I loved it so much. And I cannot wait to read more of him. This is the Grapes of Wrath, but I like the others that I've mentioned. I've bought all of his books in Library of America. I think there were 3 or 4 different collections for Library of America for John Steinbeck. So I intend to read several of his books next year. Grapes of Wrath among them, because this is one of my older books, I think, on my TBR. But I want to read his entire collection at this point. This year I've struggled to read more classics, and I think one thing that I've really been able to do is identify classics or authors that are classic writers that meet my needs, meaning finding authors who I think work for me. Now, I'm still exploring, obviously, Charles Dickens and Jane Austen, and I suppose you could also say James Baldwin. These are all authors that I'm still exploring with, I'm hoping I'll love, but even outside of them, I've found authors that are classics that really work for me. I think it really bodes well for, I guess, my classic reading future. I don't know what I'm saying. Continuing on that note, Daphne du Maurier. This is the Birds and Other Stories, the short story collection, but I've actually bought I bought a lot of books by Daphne du Maurier, and I fully intend to continue. Like East of Eden, this was a nice, beautiful surprise of a classic writer who is everything I want. And the Rebecca was so good, and I've heard her other books are just as good. So good. Okay, I'm running low on storage. Let's hope that I can get through these before I run out. Okay, A.S. King. Love and adore. Please ignore Vera Diaz. This is just one book of several. I think I've read about half of her books this year. My goal was to read all of them. Then I realized, I don't know what I realized. I just stopped picking them up. Not because I didn't like them, just because I think I wanted to prioritize other books. And I think that's fine. There was no need for me to rush through them. But I definitely want to read a couple more this year. I think it makes sense for me to take my time. She definitely has a new book coming out, which I want to read. I'm not sure if I pre-ordered it, but I would like to read that too. So, an author who is a new favorite of mine, and I fully intend to read more of hers, this being just one example. In that same light, I've only read one book by Anna Marie McLemore, but I want to read so many of their books, and I own, I think, 2 now of theirs, not including the one that I've already read, so I want to read those. They have a new book coming out this year as well, or rather 2021. I want to read that as well. Their writing is so beautiful, so queer, and so magical, and dear God, I think they will be a favorite once I've read more of their books. I think I might even go so far as saying I like their writing style more than A.S. King. A.S. King's writing can be really weird and so just out there, but this one, I love the magicalness, how it can really, I love how they go so deep in the magic of it all, and when I read Blanca and Roja, it was the almost fairy tale-ness of it, mixed with the queerness that I just absolutely adored. Next would be Shauna McGuire. This is just one example. I just picked up one. I want to read Shauna McGuire's, all of her books. But this is, I think, one off book that she wrote for a series called Boneyard. It was from the Deadlands, whatever it is, I think it's like a fantasy Western. I'm not sure. But this is just representative of her entire collection. I've bought the first couple books of several of her other series. I don't know what they're called, but like urban fantasy type books. I've also bought several of her horror books that she's written as a YA author, and she's an author I intend to read a shit ton of. I'll probably reread her other book, Middle Game, again, honestly. Tana Reeve is an author I want to read more of. This is The Between. I think between all of her books, I think this one is the one that I want to read the most. This one is, I think, one of the few that aren't on audio, but I think it's like a ghost story, and I think it'll be a fun read, even though I won't be able to listen to it. Tana Reeve is a fantastic horror writer, and one of my new favorites, and so I can't have this list without mentioning her books as an example. This being, again, one of several that I hope to get to. Next up is The Changeling by Victor LaValle. This is one of several books. I think I may have bought all of his books now. He is a horror writer. He wrote The Ballad of Black Tom, which I really enjoyed. It was a really well done book, and I'm excited to check out his other works. I know he loves Lovecraft, and I love Lovecraft, therefore let's need more of that. I'm not sure if all of his works are Lovecraft though, but this is just one that I pulled off my shelf because it seemed interesting, but he has several that I want to read, like all of these people do. Next is Octavia Butler. This is Clay's arc. This is the next book in her Pattern series. Granted, I intend to hopefully be done with the entire Pattern series by next year because I'm participating in this Octavia Butler slow read, so one book every couple months. Another author I'll definitely be getting to because of the Octavia Butler slow read. But look at this gorgeous cover. Look at that. What is this telling us? With the moon, is that a star? Or is it horizon? Or is it also a moon? And there's something inside of her. What is that? Is it an animal? Is it a baby? What is it telling us? Okay, moving on to our last four. Next two, though, are going to be N.K. Jemisin. We have the next book in the Inheritance trilogy and the next book in the Broken Earths trilogy.
Sure, but I found some information for her.
Okay, stop. All she does is listen. It's so nice to her to listen, but I wish she wouldn't listen so much. Okay, where was I? The second book in the Inheritance trilogy and the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy. And I would love to finish both of these, honestly, both of these trilogies, but I will absolutely continue both for sure. Okay, now we're almost there. Next is book 2 of the Darker Shades of Magic trilogy. I'm not sure if that's the name of the first book or the actual name of the trilogy. And there are a couple reasons why I want to continue this. First off, I'm intrigued by the story, even though honestly I did not like the first one. I think I gave it 3 stars. It was probably a low 3 stars at that. I just didn't love his setting of Victoria, England, and it just didn't work for me. Also the narrator I didn't like. But this one is narrated by none other than Kate Redding, who I absolutely adore. So I'm hoping I'll like this more. But on top of that, I don't know. I just think I heard this one was better. And also, I have the special edition version. So I want to continue giving it a try. And then lastly, I plan to read The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. And this one is obviously a classic. And I tried reading this once several years ago and I couldn't get into it because it was epic fantasy or high fantasy. But I'm hoping to try again and give it another try and hopefully get through it because I paid for this whole collection. If I'm going to read it, I'm either going to read all of it or none of it. So this is the next big one that I hope to read. Now, those are 21 books, authors, and series that I plan on reading next year. And consider this video a guarantee that I will read the authors I said I would read, and that if I said I was going to read a book, that I will read that book. I swear to you, by the old gods and the new. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you plan on reading next year. And I will see you tomorrow for the next day of 12 days of Vlogmas.